dancing.
All right, before we get started, let's please everybody remind you to silence cell phones. People are pretty good about it now, but it doesn't hurt to have a reminder now and again. All right, I'd like to call to order the 5:30 p.m. workshop. It's 4/26/23, and all 5 counselors are here. So we'll just get right into it. The first item on the agenda is Deschutes County Sheriff Office update. Lieutenant Davis. Good evening. How are you doing?
Doing great.
Good.
Well, as the weather goes, so do our calls for service. This week has already been very busy. We've been out and about doing things, and it has had a good uptick. Deputies Brian Morris and Josh Westfall this week are attending a 40-hour survival Spanish for law enforcement class at our main office in Bend. Learning good communication skills with our Spanish speakers. So they'll be finishing that up on Friday. Not related to the contract, but our school resource deputy, Brent Crosswhite, is officially retiring again at the end of this school year. And so we're right in the middle of a process to replace him. Deputy Josh Westfall was the only applicant for that job, and he's one of our current contract deputies. And so he has applied for that and is in the backgrounding process for that position now, which will necessitate backfilling his spot. And so we have a process that's just open for city assisters deputies again, in which we will involve someone from either the council or staff. And I'm open to taking volunteers if somebody'd like to be a part of an oral board for that process. Which will be happening in the next week or two.
I think Joe wants to be a deputy.
Okay.
Joe?
I am. There's a badge in the safe.
Okay.
Go get it.
So we will likely be losing Deputy Crosswhite, we will be losing Deputy Crosswhite, but Deputy Westfall will likely be transitioning into that position, which really helps us from a continuity perspective. Obviously, he knows our team. We interact with their school resource deputy on a daily basis in the schools and coordinating responses to calls and investigations. And so I feel really good about having Deputy Westfall transition into that spot. Bike patrol will be starting probably this next week. As the temperatures get warmer and warmer, we're more likely to be out in shorts and on bikes. Good to see us out there. And then also we'll be hosting our bike certification class again on June 7th, which is rodeo week. So we'll be having law enforcement from throughout Central Oregon that will be attending and getting folks certified in bike patrol. So, and I think as you can see from the stats, our numbers in March increased significantly compared to February. We're up over 100, almost 200 calls in that amount of time. So even March was busier. So that's all I have.
All right. Does anybody have any questions, comments? No? No?
Other than,
Thank you.
yep.
Thank you
Great.
so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Next is an update from Republic Services. Courtney Voss is leading the charge.
I'm leading the charge. I'm rolling deep though. I've got my team here. Okay, so first, thank you so much for letting us come speak with you today. My name is Courtney Voss. I am the municipal manager for Republic Services in Central Oregon. I have been here since September, so not so long, but in that very short period of time have really enjoyed spending time up here in Sisters. So good job with everything that you do, and Sisters is awesome.
Where's your main office, may I ask?
Well, I service the region, so I have an office in Bend, Redmond.
Okay.
I sometimes work out of Lapine, Prineville,
Gotcha.
so I bounce around.
Just curious.
But I come from Philadelphia, so go Eagles. And I want to introduce everybody that is here tonight. To my right is Erica. She is our new general manager. She joined us officially in December, but really relocated up here in January. So she is also a noob. but has hit the ground running, and she's awesome, doing a really wonderful job addressing some of the challenges that we're going to talk to you about tonight. And then behind me, I've got Urbany. She is our finance director, finance manager, our operations manager, Ron. And our operations supervisor, Albert Aby, who has been in the Redmond's office for 18 years.
Seen that face before.
Yes.
Right.
I also want to introduce quickly Tim Brownell. You guys probably know him from last, he might have come to one of your previous work sessions. He works for Deschutes County Solid Waste. He's the co-director, Tim, I think is your title. And he's here tonight because some of the things that we're going to bring up with you and share with you are related to some things that are happening with Deschutes County landfill. So he is here to answer questions as well. Our goal for tonight is to talk with you about our operations in Sisters Country, to really highlight the way our work is changing and to start a conversation with you about the way that those changes will impact residents and businesses in this region. Just a reminder of the history. In 2019, maybe a slide advancement. Sorry, Carrie. And next one. So in 2019, we started providing services here in the City of Sisters. We have the franchise for hauling, collection, disposal of waste. It's a rolling 7-year franchise agreement with a franchise fee that we pay to you every single year of 7%. Our margins under that franchise or pursuant to that franchise are 12%. Limited profit margins. Our operations up here, we have 10 employees who regularly work in service of this community. We serve nearly 1,600 customers between commercial, residential, and industrial. And that is growing. Our customer base is growing just the way that your customer constituent base is growing. So we absolutely love being here. Our drivers up here can service up to 800 stops per route per day. So they're very, very busy, but they love coming up here. We have one employee who lives here. He's the one that services the Sisters Recycling Center. And everyone loves it, especially because you've got a Philly cheesesteaks place, which is awesome. So it's one of our kind of like most prized communities to serve, and we really love to be here. I was, on the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about how much waste is coming out of the City of Sisters. So just for context, we, every single week, are picking up solid waste, we're picking up garbage. That garbage is going to not landfill. Every other week, we are picking up yard debris, glass recycling. The recycling commodities go to our operations center in Bend, where they're prepared to go to an end market sorting facility so that they can be reused and diverted from the landfill. And then all of the yard debris that we collect, including a lot of the yard debris that we're collecting during the spring and fall cleanups, that's going to not landfill and is being composted as part of our composting facility. So lots of different things happening. And in terms of like how much waste that really is, and Carrie, I'm going to send you some updated numbers because they're actually different from this, updated from this. But I was at a school recently, and there was a little kid that I was talking to about how much trash we're really collecting. And so I like to put it in the context of elephants. So the average African elephant, female African elephant, I can talk about this all day, by the way, if you're interested in elephants, weighs, let's just say, between 2 and 5 tons. So let's just assume 2 tons. So in total, across all of our routes, we're collecting 1,500 of those elephants every single year. It's a lot of elephants. It's 1,000 trash elephants. It's 200 recycling elephants. It's 200 yard debris elephants. So it's a lot of material. And that isn't just a random like tidbit. I mean, the elephant piece is a little bit random, I'll give you that, but the actual waste is important to think about because all of that has cost implications. And so I'm going to bring Tim up here at some point to talk a little bit about the cost of disposal and what that is going to do to customers' rates or could potentially do to customers' rates. But we consider all of these things. Volumes matter. And so it's just something to keep in mind. And it's part of the reason why diversion and particularly the yard debris piece is ultimately so important. I want to go back to service and just say that I think a lot of you have probably, you can go to the next slide, Carrie.
Backwards, you said you're going back?
Forward. Yeah. Okay, so you may have heard some concerns raised maybe by some of your constituents about Republic Services quality of service and our responsiveness. If you have heard those complaints, I just want to apologize to you. We take our responsibility to the customers that we serve extremely seriously. We want to pick up their trash every single time that we're supposed to pick up their trash on their trash day. We don't want to be late. We don't want to miss it. The same is true of recycling, and the same is true of yard debris. So, I've worked with your staff, and we'll periodically get notifications that we've missed somebody. And so when that happens, that isn't the level of service that we want to provide you or the people that live here. And so if that has happened, if you've received those calls, we're sorry about that. And a number of really important things have happened, including we've got some new leadership here, and we're making really good improvements in the quality of our service, both from a collection standpoint and a call center standpoint. And I think we're moving in the right direction. And Erica and I can talk a little bit more about that if there's questions about it specifically. 99% of the time, we're going to get it right, and we do get it right. But in terms of quantity, there's 500,000 interactions in Sisters, 587 misses, or, over the course of a year. That's 587 too many. So we're going to continue to work to get that number to 0. And next slide. With regard to the call center, we can go to the next one. And the next one, we'll just hop right into the CRC. So during the COVID period, like a lot of businesses, we moved to a remote call center. And that transition was not without some turbulence. All of our call center representatives now work from home. And I think the benefit of that is that our employees love that work from home option. The challenge that was associated with that, particularly during COVID, when we were trying to manage a lot of different challenges, just like any business, was that there was just some things that were systems that needed to be worked out. Since, I would say, November or December, we've really seen a dramatic improvement in the quality of service that people are getting from our call center. The vast majority, over 98%, 99% of those customers are saying that they're getting their issue resolved on the first call. And we're also investing in call center agents that understand this market. So we've added positions that are specifically focused on the state of Oregon, that are trained in what happens in Central Oregon, because even though Republic Services is a national company, the work that we do is really local. It's hyper-local, and we recognize that and are doing everything that we can to ensure the best possible customer experience every single time. We also have an app that we're really going to start pushing and helping customers connect to, and customers can also connect through our website. And we're starting to roll out all sorts of cool new tools. So online Track My Truck, and there's ways to contact us electronically and kind of on the go. So really exciting things in customer service. And again, if you've heard concerns raised, we are always happy, eager to address those and ensure that you're happy with the service we're providing and that the customers are as well.
I have a quick question. So the customer service agents that are working from home, they're not local necessarily. They could be from anywhere.
They could be from anywhere. We have an Oregon, we call it the Oregon Pod, that are, how many do we have? 28?
31.
31 employees that are they based in Oregon? Or
They're
are
based in the Northwest area, but they're specifically focused on customers and taking inbound calls from Oregon-based customers. So that includes our group, which is Central Oregon, and any time that the City of Sisters residents call in, they'd be speaking to those specific agents.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to jump forward to some of the big things that are happening in the industry. So you've heard about the Recycling Modernization Act. I won't spend a lot of time talking about that. Really, really exciting if you're into trash and recycling like I am. Is so exciting. Lots of changes coming. We're going to see more items collected curbside. The system as a whole is going to be able to do a much better job of actually making sure that things are recycled, that they're not just going to to an end market and not have a good use. So that's really exciting stuff that's happening, and Tim is on the rulemaking committee for that. So if there's more questions about that, I'm sure he can answer them. Also kind of want to alert you to what could be happening in I would say the next 2-3 years. We've seen the state of California and the state of Washington are both pursuing pretty aggressive and have implemented, frankly, pretty aggressive food waste diversion programs. And it's only a matter of time that before we're gonna see that in the state of Oregon. And that will have implications for our ratepayers here. But it's also a huge opportunity because food waste and yard debris makes up a significant chunk of what goes into the landfill currently. So those are the two kind of statewide policy pieces. Republic Services, a national company doing a lot of really interesting and progressive sustainability work, and working on bringing electric vehicles, including to Central Oregon. So we're going to see our first electric vehicles en route within the next year. And I'm hoping that at some point we're going to see those in the city of Sisters, because the plan is that all of Republic's fleet is going to be electrified before the end of 2027. Yes. So that's really exciting. And we also are opening up the nation's first polymer center, which will help us kind of address issues with plastics and plastic circularity. Happy to talk more about that if anyone is interested in plastic. And we also acquired US Ecology, which is it was a big acquisition, but what it means for us locally is that we have resources to deal with, hazmats, emergency response, homelessness, encampment, cleanups, things that are maybe outside of what Republic Services has traditionally been able to do. We now have a partner company that is able to kind of leverage and help us do those things.
And a quick question on the Polymer Center. That's a national center. It's not in Central Oregon, is that correct?
It is not in Central Oregon, but if you're really excited about plastics, we should talk about how to advocate for getting one here. That wasn't part of the talking points. I'll probably get in trouble for that later. But the cool thing is it's going to be in Las Vegas, and I'm hopeful that some of the material, a lot of the plastics material that we're collecting, can eventually end up in that Polymer Center, because it's a really state-of-the-art, cool thing. They're going to take plastic bottles and give us the ability to make plastic bottles, and we just don't have that nationally right now. So really kind of cutting edge technology that they're going to be implementing. And with enough of those types of centers, we can totally transform the way that we're dealing with that waste stream. I want to talk a little bit about our financials. So I know that this is a work session. Nothing is we see this very much as the start of a conversation, and want to make sure that you're aware of kind of the financial situation that the company is in, and start to lay the foundation for conversations about how we move forward with that. So in the presentation, we've included our 2022 financials and our 2023 projections, and our 2023 rate ask. So if you've already looked through the presentation, you've probably noticed that ask is larger than you've seen in previous years. It's at 16.5%. So I want to talk a little bit about why that number is what it is. You'll notice in 2022, our revenues increased by about $150,000, or almost 19%. In this industry, revenue growth generally happens because a customer base grows. And just because we're seeing a revenue increase, we're also going to see an expense increase, because at the end of the day, more customers means more stops. So in other industries where you might see revenue growth without the expense growth, you're not going to see that as much in the waste industry. Our costs have outpaced the growth, and we were also negatively impacted by the costs of diverting recyclable materials from the landfill. So in a good year, recyclable materials that we collect they might have financial value, meaning we're able to sell them and generate revenue from the sale of those materials. 2022 was not a good year. In fact, I don't know when the last time that we had a really good year was for the recycling market, but as it is now today, we're paying a lot of money to be able to ensure that recyclable materials are recycled instead of landfilled. And so that's a major cost driver for us. What was once a valuable commodity that generated revenue now is a big expense. Other key points, labor costs have increased by 17%. That is in part because of market adjustments that we did to retain employees. It's really expensive to live in Central Oregon, frankly, so our employees need to be able to earn a living wage. Fuel and oil costs have increased by 86%. Maintenance and repairs, 33%, and disposal costs at not landfill are going to go up by 27%. And again, Tim is here, and I know that he's eager to address that. Yeah, Tim, address that particular point. So what does that all mean for you as regulators? It means that you're being asked to consider a pretty sizable increase. For context, a customer with 90-gallon carts, the additional cost per month is around $7. So for a total bill of $38.65. And even though that's a noticeable increase on a bill, we are providing a service that involves stopping at your house as many as 8 times per month, 9 times per month. And it's a service that involves picking up things that people don't want and making sure that they're going from your curb or from your business to a responsible place. That is not easy work to do. It is not cheap work to do. And, we are hopeful that you'll be able to help us think through the best way to continue to provide the level of service and improve the level of service and meet your expectations and also remain financially in a good position. So again, start of a conversation, happy to answer any questions that you might have. And the entire team is here to answer questions as well.
On this portion of it, do you want the questions now? Or?
Sure.
Okay. We can do that. Does everybody have questions?
Do you want to, should we hear from the not landfill?
I mean, I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I think we all have questions. We've all looked at it, so.
Well, about this presentation, do we ask questions about this part first? Or?
Yeah, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I think we all have questions.
Okay.
Let me go first then, I guess. Just, I'm looking at, total franchisee revenues and revenue from operations from 22 and your projections to 2023 are minimal. So revenues aren't growing according to these numbers, but we know that the city's growing 6 to 10%. And I would assume that the customer base would be growing at a similar amount. So I'm kind of wondering about how come the numbers don't kind of reflect that.
Align with the projected growth
Yeah.
in volume.
Because that's revenue from operations, so that's just people, right? Basically customers mostly?
Yeah, so it's.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that's something that we can have as a takeaway, and if that's, an ask from the council, we can certainly take a look at that and look at the projected revenue growth that the city is anticipating.
Yeah.
The reason why we don't generally put in projected revenue growth is because that's a hard one to really, future look at and see if that's something that is going to happen.
Right.
And I think something to take into consideration too, anytime that we have projected revenue growth, there is going to be a projected cost growth. So our perspective and our approach was taking, okay, what do we, with revenue, if we were projecting revenue to stay the same, we're looking at our 2022 actual expenses and then letting you know or projecting what the increases are going to be with inflationary costs such as the labor and the disposal piece and the known costs that we know are going to increase. So that was our approach. Okay. But again, we can certainly put in a projected revenue growth. If it's 6 to 8%, we can certainly do that.
I mean, as a city, we do it. Obviously, we have growth projections that we use for our budgeting and our income, our revenue as well. And so I just don't know if that's reflected here or not. I guess that's why I'm asking.
It isn't. In urban, do you know what growth, did we assume any population growth?
Right.
Okay.
So very minimal. So if
Yeah.
that's something you would like us to readjust, we can certainly do so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I'm not trying to pull apart the numbers or anything like that. It just pops off the page at me that the total franchisee revenues from one year to the next haven't gone up when all the expenses have. And so my question, I guess a follow-up question is, are you saying that some of these operating expenses on this 2023 projected side have brought those revenues down in this same table? Can we go back to that, sorry about that, where it says, thank you. Yeah, so where it says total franchisee revenues from 22 to 23, it's actually down a little bit. And so my question is, did you take these operating expenses below that number and plug them into projected revenue from operations, or is that just its own number at the top?
Yeah, they're separated.
Okay.
And the
Okay.
reason why you're seeing potentially a reduction year over year with the revenue growth, that is tied primarily to the recycling, the commodity market that Courtney spoke about.
Okay.
Really looking at, or this really shows the impact of the fact that there's no longer value to this. This is now going into a cost implication and
Okay.
perspective.
I just want to be sure I know what I'm looking at, so that's what I'm doing. And the second thing that I noticed, you talked about fuel prices going up 86%, and then I look at 2022 and it's 61,000, and then 2023 is 65,000. It's not reflecting a higher fuel price. So again, I just want to make sure that, and it doesn't have to be today, because obviously we're not diving into actual numbers today, but this is, should be somewhat close. And it looks like, the 86% rise in fuel prices isn't reflected in operating expenses. And I was just wondering, I'm
So
kind of
the-
just looking at it.
The 86% that Courtney spoke about was our 2022 actual costs, and
Oh.
doing a comparison against
Gotcha.
what 2021 was.
All right. Thank you. I think that's all I have. Go ahead.
I was just wondering how you reviewed this whole process when do you look at Central Oregon region as a whole, or do you look at our sisters as its own capsule? And so that the rates would be race and revenue and whatever would be different depending on what region you're in. Do you keep sisters separate, or are we a percentage of the whole, which is based on how many people are serviced here?
Right, so we actually, it's by franchise area, so you are treated independently of everybody else. Correct. We evaluate it only for the City of Sisters.
Revenues and costs.
So when
are-
you talk about wages for employees and whatnot, those employees only work in Sisters, and a supervisor only works for employees in Sisters, and supplies and all those kinds of things are only in Sisters.
Those types of expenses, we look at the total time that the employees are spending in Sisters. It's all percentage based. So
Okay.
we might have a driver who services, for example, the City of Redmond and the City of Sisters, but
It's
this
route
budget
based.
is based on the routes here and the time the driver is spending here.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
You good?
Yeah.
Are you ready, Jennifer? You have me?
I do have
thought I was
lots of
gonna-
questions, but can you, we, obviously, Republic, like, as you said, has been here a few years. We had locally based service providers, and, can you speak to being a publicly traded company with shareholders and dividends and all that good stuff, and CEOs and all those kind of things? Can you just speak to, where our fees go in that respect? It's kind of easier to kind of comprehend and maybe, keep an eye on a local franchisee when, their shop is down the street. But when we're looking at a, national corporation, we have more questions and more concerns about where, our dollars might be going. So
Yeah.
if you had any input on that, that'd be great.
In terms of where it shows up in the budget documents that you have or the financials, it's going to be under the management fees. So you can see what those are in 2022 and 2020, projected 2023. And that bucket encompasses legal support, web. I think in this budget,
Expert departments.
yeah, all the kind of expertise specialists, people that understand waste and science and in ways that the local team might not. Does that, in this budget, is it CRC as well?
Correct.
Yeah, so it also includes the CRC agents or the call center agents are part of that management fee as well. So it's kind of all of the not all of the back end, but a good chunk of the back end of the stuff that occurs that enables us to do what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. And then when you brought up the call center situation, I obviously we're counselors in the city, so we're, also all clients. And, I personally had a situation, I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 months ago, calling, looking at the website, not getting my answer to a pretty simple question, and phone trees, and just went on and on and on, and I just finally gave up. And then the solution ended up probably costing me more money than I think maybe if there was an answer, through organization. So that, like I said, this was 6 or 8 months ago. And you're saying that, everything has been kind of more streamlined and improved since then. I haven't had an opportunity to call, which is probably a good thing, right? But yeah, can you just speak to that, a little bit of, I know you addressed it before, but, at least in that time frame of the last year, and I obviously had some pickups missed and stuff like that. But, I've reading through this, I was like, oh yeah, that was, 6 or 8 months ago. Everything's been pretty smooth since then. So, yeah, just on that timeline, if you could just talk a little bit about is that just me anecdotally, or is that kind of indicative of how things were and then things are
I
improving?
think that feedback is pretty consistent with what we've heard and what we had been hearing. I mean, we had it was a rough year, to be blunt. And the combination, I think, of bringing in new leadership, really reprioritizing with the local team the critical nature of what we do and reminding them how important the day-to-day collections and customer service element from the drivers is, combined with doing a lot of advocacy, frankly, advocacy work with the area team and with corporate to ensure that the call center structure works for Central Oregon, because this market is different than California or Colorado. It's just a different environment. And to your point, I can't remember who said it, I think you were saying, for so long, these communities were served by small companies with owners that lived here, and the owner of the company was often doing the customer service, picking up the phone when there was an issue. And we recognize that creates a transition, that there's high expectations. We want to meet those expectations. There's a certain period of time of adjustment, and then all of that adjustment period was happening. We got whacked with COVID. There were kind of post-COVID inflationary, all sorts of things that were happening that really affected the quality of the work that we were doing. But within the past 6 months, with training, with advocacy, with really pushing this, refocusing the entire team system-wide on providing the best quality service, we've seen it improve in the numbers. And we haven't been getting as many frustrated calls from regulators, which to me, as the municipal manager, is the sign that things are going better. Because the experience that I have today with regulators is vastly different than the experience I was having in September. So, and we can provide more detailed call center data, because I think that's really been the pain point for people. To your point, calling and feeling like they're calling through the phone tree to be able to get a simple answer isn't acceptable, and I think that that's gotten better.
Thank you.
Couple things. based on the information I have here in front of me and the reading that I've done, I would have difficulty supporting this ask. So I think we need more information and clearer information. You've heard that from some of the counselors. I also am concerned with part of that ask is the assumption that there'll be a 27% disposal increase on recycling. And I understand the market's fluid. It's a fluid market. It's not a downturn market. It's not an upturn market. It's a fluid market. And so attaching a definite number to that, which affects the rate increase, without a mechanism to adjust that rate increase should the conditions be more favorable than you expect, is an issue for me. I believe that a 16% increase will force more people to dispose of their garbage, or not force, but will cause more people to dispose of their garbage at the recycling center when no one's looking over their shoulder, typically in the commingled bin. I pull lots of garbage out of there as it is when I go over, and that affects your ability to recycle, and that affects the cost. So, since the recycling center is not staffed, there's a real opportunity for folks who just don't want to pay for a bill of garbage, or people who are staying in a STR or something like that, to go and put it in those bins. And so I think that needs to be, we need a solution to that. And if the solution to that is a clearly marked tippable bin that's for garbage, place garbage here or something, I know that's kind of done under the table, but I think we need to be clear. Because I think that will continue to push that recycling cost, because you have to dispose of the whole load if it's full of garbage. So that's kind of where I am. And I will say that I have had an opportunity to involve myself in your phone tree. It's awful. I will have the opportunity to involve myself in your web app, your phone app. It's even worse.
Okay.
And I have been one of the folks that's had to, I'm at the beginning of a route. For some reason, they miss me on occasion. But probably not awake, coffee's not there. So I think that, when you went to a service model where we removed the local support staff, that's a big concern for me. I understand the phone tree concept. I'm glad we have people in the Northwest handling it. Nothing more frustrating than picking the phone up and speaking to somebody who's clearly in Alabama or in Florida or in Maine or somewhere like that. And so that's something that needs to be done. So that's where I am right now, but I need more numbers before I can support this.
That's really good feedback, and again, we take all of that feedback really seriously. I do want to clarify, there's two disposal-related costs that we're expecting to go up. One of them is a cost, the 27% that you talked about, that is disposal at not landfill, and that 27% assumption is based on the numbers given to us by Deschutes County. So that's the Tim Brownell part. He can come up at any point and
But it says
weigh
recycling,
in.
the recycling market.
So the other piece of it is really about the diversion and the recycling
Yes.
commodities. And to your point, that is fluid. We could see a move in the right direction, meaning that those commodities could have value.
I see I didn't read as carefully.
That hasn't been the trend, and that's why we base the rates on combination of what happened in the prior 12 months and what our kind of subject matter experts are telling us is likely to happen over the course of the next 12 months. So that's the recycling piece. The disposal at the landfill piece is something that we don't.
Right, and we've already heard from,
Yeah.
in a previous meeting about the landfill and the cost increase. We're aware of that.
Okay.
Anything else, Gary? You good?
No. I think I got it. Yeah. Okay. Read my notes.
So on the management fee that went up 13%, I'm not really clear on the increase there. You mentioned it's mostly about the CRC. Is that additional employees in the CRC you're anticipating?
There were additional employees added to the CRC. The primary driver of that management fee increase is something that maybe Erica can.
Well, I was going to say that the management fee, there's a part of it that is relating to the call center, but it's also relating to more corporate overhead, legal teams, specialty teams, executive management, area leadership teams. So
Right.
there's, yeah,
But
that's a-
those are in existence in the past already.
Correct.
So are they increasing their fees, or, I mean, just generally increasing their fees?
There are going to be increases year over year, that is
Oh,
correct, yes.
okay.
But relating specifically to the CRC team or our central call center,
Mhm.
so the rates that are provided are based off of call volume. So that's how our local team, so to speak, gets charged, is based off of the call volume that's relating to the local service area. And to Courtney's point that we spoke about before, we did add additional employees into that local call center, specifically handling the Oregon-based phone calls. So there's going to be a combination of that. And there's also going to be inflationary increases that they also experience with wage increases as well. That's going to contribute to the year-over-year increases.
It's kind of ironic. So if you have a call center that if they get increased calls, they get more money. And so if you don't do a good job, there's going to be more calls. My other question.
That's not a, well,
No comment.
In the reading of the explanation for the increases, there was a downturn in 2022, and I think you explained that had a lot to do with COVID, initially, and then winding down through the year. But that doesn't explain why you would think there would be another downturn this year, where you would think that there's not enough revenues coming in. So
It's based off of a continuation of a downturn with the value associated with the commodity or the recycling material. So that's why that part explaining on the revenue piece is talking about that specific point, is that the revenue in the beginning of the year, the commodity market was favorable. So there was value associated with it. And through the sale of that material, because it was valuable, we were generating revenue. But in the middle of the year, the commodity market shifted and there was no longer value associated with that material. So it turned into a cost. And then we're seeing that continuation of the material is no longer valuable, therefore it's not generating revenue, and it's continuing to be a cost driver.
Okay, and there's no prospect that material will be valuable at some point then?
It's like Gary was saying, it's a fluid market, so
Fluid,
there's that
okay.
potential, but what we've seen on, the last year, it's continued to be a downturn market, and unfortunately, we don't know when that market will change or shift. But there's always that potential. We just don't know when that will happen.
And I would just say that the challenge for us financially is that it's very hard to predict all of that. Obviously, it's a complex system, and if our expenses exceed what we budget for and plan for, if the commodities market, the bottom falls out again and it gets really bad, that affects the next year's rates. And so we're constantly mindful of the fact that coming in front of you and asking for a 16.5% increase is really hard. I would very much like to not do that again. Although I love seeing all of you, I love being here, it's an uncomfortable place to be. And so we're constantly kind of thinking, all right, how are we going to cover all of these costs in year, and how are we going to kind of moderate the asks over a period of time? The other thing I want to say is that this commodities piece is hopefully a relatively short-term problem, because with the Recycling Modernization Act, if that works the way that the state thinks it's going to, there's going to be a stabilization of recycling markets that is essentially funded by the producers of the material. So Pepsi, Coke, all of those folks will pay into a fund that will take out some of these fluctuations we're seeing, which results in rate stabilization for the ratepayer. So we have this period of time that we need to get through. And then hopefully 2025, 2026, we won't see this kind of up and down anymore.
I just have one last question. So has this national organization ever reduced rates?
For public services?
Mhm.
I can't speak to that. My assumption, I don't even want to assume, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
that's a takeaway for us to look into, because I don't know the answer to that either.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on recycling, and I'll address the recycling elephant in the room. Um, You speak of disposal costs as opposed to revenue.
Yes.
What type of disposal is occurring when there's no revenue for the plastics? Is it landfilling it?
No, so
Okay,
it's just.
That's the elephant I wanted an answer to.
Correct. So the cost associated with the recycling commodities is transportation to
Yep.
the sorting facility, MRF, and we send our material to a facility in Portland. So there's cost associated with that. When we pick up the material curbside and bring it to our processing facility in Bend, there's cost associated with baling that material and getting it ready so that we can ship it to the sorting facility in Portland.
Okay, thanks.
And what size region do we have to be to have our own MRF here?
I'm sorry, can you ask the
That
question?
might be a Tim question, but how big would the region have to be that we would have our own sorting facility or MRF here? Because I would assume would alleviate baling and transportation and those costs. I mean, there would be other associated costs, but I mean, I know there's very few in Oregon, period, but
I don't want to speak for Tim. I don't know if you want to pop up here and answer that question or.
Come on up.
Oh.
The mic is hot, so.
Good evening.
Hi.
Mayor, council members. Tim Brownell, incoming Director of Solid Waste for Deschutes County. So on the answer is yes, and we are getting close to the size of a population base and a waste stream that it will warrant looking at investing in a MRF here in Central Oregon. And that would serve not only Deschutes County, but areas within the central and eastern part of the state. So we are doing a feasibility study right now as to when and or how soon should we be developing that here in this market. With the Recycling Modernization Act, there will be not only funding for stabilizing the markets, so there will be a floor of the value which will not be negative to communities. In addition to that, if we until we have a MRF in this market, material recovery facility, there will be a transportation fund also to get materials from this market to the existing MRFs. So the cost for transport will be covered. So those two pieces are going to be pretty significant funding sources that will reduce the cost of recycling to the point that it's not a disposal cost, it's actually a positive. So it will impact rates, it will stabilize that portion of the rates. Currently, we're in a pretty depressed market, so it's impacting us. And to the point, how do we get that money back? How do the rates get impacted once we get to that point? And that should be in place by July 1st of 2025. So I think it'll be looking at rates at that point.
Okay, so the funding is July 2025.
Yes.
Any idea how long before the MRFs started? And I mean, it's kind of early for that. What are you shooting for?
I'll be able to tell you in about 6 months.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Tim?
I had one other question. You know, with the new landfill process, is that going to, I mean, is that part of the 27% increase? Are we kind of prepaying that? Are we going, and once that is fully operational, is that going to increase costs, or is it going to drop costs because of efficiencies, or you know, what should we be projecting long-term?
Projecting long-term costs are going to, disposal costs are going to continue to increase. Most likely the facility will be to the east part of the county, so there will be some increases in transportation costs to get materials to that facility. We're also going to have a period of time where we are developing and operating a new landfill and closing the existing landfill. So we have a number, part of what our challenge is on the financial side is we have about $80 million of capital investment that we have to make on the waste disposal side of things and closing the existing landfill and improving the waste transfer sites. Over the next 10 years, we have to invest about $80 million. So that's part of what this rate increase is that we're making at this point. And we do anticipate that we'll have a couple more increases over the next 5 years.
Okay, thank you.
That was my question.
All right, there you go. Thanks, Tim. I'm going to do a time check-in for everybody, 10 minutes. Is everybody good with that? I have a final question about the 2023 projection budget again. And I know you guys aren't in the business to lose money, but with the numbers that you're showing, it's a net income negative of $44,000. Is that real and something you might be looking at, is not making money?
With that budget or that projection assumes that we do not get a rate increase. So the rate increase that we're requesting enables us to reach the kind of profit margin range that we have, that is kind of part of our franchise agreement. So that range is 9 to 12%.
Okay.
And with the rate increase that we've requested, we would land right in the middle of that range.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yep.
Do you have more to present to us, or are you through everything?
We are through with everything, and I would just say as a follow-up, it sounds like there's some maybe need for more information. There might be more questions. I don't know how it typically works, but I assume that those questions would go to Joe or Carrie, and then we can do a follow-up.
I have one more thing for you. In the past with the previous company, we've had discussions about spreading out a rate increase over years so it doesn't affect customers as adversely. Is that something that you guys could be interested in, or if we, during these discussions and stuff, is that something that you guys
Or
might?
on the flip side, can we lock in a rate for a certain amount of years? So at least we can say, hey, this isn't going to change for.
Yeah, if this is the early part of a negotiation,
So
I
many
want to see
years.
what's on the table, right? So.
Yeah, I think that our approach is that we want to be the best possible partners for the City of Sisters. So if, we are happy to have a conversation about structuring that increase in any way that is needed to kind of satisfy both parties. So.
We might have some discussions and see what, obviously we need to talk, so.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, I appreciate that willingness. Is there anything else? Final questions, anybody?
Just a bad pun, and I'm going to let it.
Oh, let it go,
Thank you.
let it go.
He's been gone so long, he's been saving them up, so. All right.
For the cost of a MRF, you could probably figure it out.
The last thing I'll say is we appreciate you coming here today. We want to be great partners with you guys too. We're not trying to bash you or anything we're just asking some hard questions, and sometimes questions about money get a little uncomfortable sometimes. Yeah. So but we do feel like up here that we want to be great stewards of the people's money, and that's one of the reasons we kind of poke and prod and find out what's going on. And we're looking forward to having these discussions with you moving forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice meeting you as well.
All right. We're going to take a 7-minute break and start city council on time. Whoa.
That's because I didn't get my best.
There we go. Sorry about that. My fault. I'd like to call to order the 6/30/4/26/2023 city council meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, Carrie, please. Oh, sorry.
Mayor Frieden,
I'm here.
Council President Bluff,
Here.
Councilor Letts,
Here.
Councilor Ross,
Here.
Councilor Cobb.
Here.
Next is the approval of the agenda.
I would move approval of the agenda.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Was that you?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure, so Carrie knew. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, next is visitor communication. I have a little statement to read first before we start visitor communications. Excuse me. Recently, the City Council has been receiving public comments related to land use file SP 22-02, a site plan review application for the Space Age gas station. Please be advised that this is an active land use application that is currently under review by the City of Sisters Community Development Department, and it is tentatively scheduled to be heard by the Sisters Planning Commission on June 4, 2023 at a work session, and on June 18, 2023 at a hearing where public comment will be taken. Prior to that, your comments will be more effective if directed to the city's principal planner, Matt Martin, who will ensure they are shared with the Planning Commission. This can be done via email or by dropping off your written comments at City Hall Monday through Thursday between 7:30 a.m. 4 p.m. or Friday from 7:30 a.m. to noon. As an appellate body, the City Council may be required to hear this application in the future and are therefore advised by the City Attorney to try and avoid ex parte communications. Ex parte communication is communication outside of the public record and where the applicant and other participants aren't present to hear and potentially dispute the substance of the communication made. According to the Sister Development Code, participants in a Type 3 hearing are entitled to an impartial review authority as free from potential conflicts of interest and pre-hearing ex parte contacts as possible. Thank you very much. Do we have communications today?
We do. We had one letter submitted for the record from Mark Dickens this afternoon that I forwarded to council. Is everybody comfortable with that
Yes.
being read into the record? Thank you. That will be part of the packet.
Okay.
The first person to speak is Nadine Sims.
Nadine Sims, please come up. Thank you for coming before us tonight.
Thank you. Do I give my name and address? Okay, I'm Nadine Sims, and thank you for listening to me. I happened to catch a show on television Saturday night, April 22nd. It was a Central Oregon Daily News program. The segment is Destination Oregon, and to my delight, the featured town was Sisters. And I started taking notes because of what I don't believe we pay for that advertising. I think that was, it's just like a blessing on our town. And so then I thought, okay, so then what do they find interesting about our town? So they took a lot of shots and mentioned twice people strolling along the downtown streets. They mentioned Cascade Avenue, they mentioned Hood Avenue. They showed many still shots of the iconic Western theme storefronts, art installations, statuary, the beautiful mural we had done on the wall. And they mentioned quaint. At Sisters is a quaint town. They talked about what we're known for, Sisters Folk Festival, the rodeo, the Sisters Folk Festival. And so they really focused on, I think, the things that make it so lovely to live here and make it special. And it's not any town, it's not hopefully becoming like every other town USA. They talked about the pedestrian ability. They took a long shot at Snowcap. And again, people enjoying coffee outside Sisters Coffee. And they just showed the livability of our town. And I like the fact that our town is so charming. And I just implore that decisions made that are going to affect us in the immediate time, but also for all the generations to come, are really made mindfully, that we keep this town different, keep it special, keep it quaint, keep it, the downtown, what people do elsewhere, okay. But they're not going to feature fast food or businesses that you can find anywhere. And on that one corner of interest in our town. If that were proposed to be a Lebanese restaurant, I think there would be just tremendous support. I, for one, would really, really enjoy that. I used to go to Jewel's in Bend so many times, and I'm not a big restaurant eater-outer, but I just love that kind of food. And so that's the kind of thing. Last night also, I attended the Three Sisters Historical Society. The theme was on Camp Sherman. And it's like the place was packed. And I look around here even, it's like, look what we choose to have here. We look to have things that are handmade, man-made, local, different, our history. So please just, when you make important decisions, please just know that it's, if you had to put a plaque on it and said, this was approved by, and your name was right there, I mean, would you want all of the generations to come to see who approved and didn't approve certain things in our town? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Asa Sarver?
Good evening.
Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. Thank you for your hard volunteer hours to this city. I'm Asa Sarver. I'm currently on the school board, Sisters Parks Board, and chairing the local, the PAC for the local option levy for the Sisters School District. And that's why I'm here tonight. I'm asking you for your endorsement on Measure 9-161 for the renewal of the local option. And potentially the Sisters logo, which we could use in our advertisements in the Nugget, essentially. Just a brief overview of what the local option is. It's been in place since 2003. It's been renewed every single time since then. It accounts for about 10% of our annual operation budget, which is the equivalent of 16 teachers. It helps keep special programs going, like our aviation program, guitar building. We have the highest in all of Oregon teacher retention rate, and our graduation rates continue to be in the 90s. So it's a very important part of our budget.
Awesome. Is this something we can discuss right now? Or should I do it?
Another business that can be discussed as
Other
far as-
business?
We'll talk about it a little later up here.
Okay, and I left you some information and a letter as well.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it. Well,
Thank you very
if
much.
you want to stick around, you can, but you don't have to.
All right, I
Just telling you.
appreciate it.
All right. I have a note to talk about that later, so. All right, anybody else?
Michael, please.
Is Michael our last? Good evening, Michael.
Time, of course, this is my last.
Sure, 3 minutes.
It's terrible. I still always have a sense of humor. That's actually wrong to do, but this is how I'm built.
It's okay.
For several years now, from previous experience, I'm aware police and sheriff deputies, etc., to me are auxiliary aids to a social backwards mental institution, other times called society. When some of them know what I'm speaking about with that statement, this by itself does not make them human beings to me the way the populace is not. Though I'm still required to interact with them, such as when someone disappears and they may know the occurrence, or such things as when a cabin tent, brand new in this case, gets cut open and destroyed, and they are the ones to do the investigative inquiry. So don't consider myself a hypocrite for some involvement with them. It's how your institution operates, which I happen to be born into. 2, Christianity, done and viewed in its historical form, allows, promotes, and has often demanded stunted development. And the masses always want to follow the easy way, unless There's a real culture with real adult leaders and mentors and real adult parents, all with built-in demands, extremely brutal and harsh when necessary. By the way, this obviously does not fit into your local civility project. And the secular dimension through history is the same, with some of the most stunted people doing the bidding and receiving corrupt power from it. Then a Huckleberry Finn today will be using drugs, etc., or perhaps already dead or incarcerated. And Big Jim, too drunk to bother to try to tie his shoelaces, and his brain damage from overexposure to good-faced, good kindness, even some good-loving, good, talented, hollow, artificial people. Does this on my behalf sound like some biological or social malfunction? Doesn't it sound like time to see a psychiatrist? For a social malfunction, it certainly is, and I feel I need to go down to the river and get drunk with Jim, not being part of the endless talented thinkers, talkers, writers, musicians, and artists who replace real conscience and real humanity today. Though, if Big Jim is still alive and not incarcerated, is probably sitting next to a river of automobiles in a metropolitan nightmare. You don't need to worry about me. You have the Deschutes County Health Brigade with brigadiers on your side, and they have the right to deceive, manipulate, exploit, rape, and enslave me. And with the response received from doing this, after waiting many, many years, they are further empowered and dominant. Genuine evil at play, genuine evil paid and accepted by you. So I'm not looking anymore for my form of humanity in the hell. I have plenty of other things to make me sick and insane. Just someone to set up an appointment with the county commissioner to bust through the brigadier's wall. I will also pay for your time and transportation costs. Someone that's elementary and says, I'm standing with him. With that last 4-word sentence, after all else I just said, I actually said something dreamy. Yes, I need to believe it's out there on the horizon somewhere over the rainbow. At least Lala, in her very rare, deep, real conscience, knows I cannot and should not quit.
Thank you, Michael. All right. Next item up is the consent agenda.
I would move approval of the consent agenda.
Second, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Paul. A couple of things on there for you on the consent agenda. Okay, thank you for that. Awesome. Council business, we have 6 items. Numbers 1 through F, just kidding. The first one up is the NHA award letter. Good stuff. Scott Woodford,
Good evening.
what's your address? No, I'm just kidding.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council.
How's it going?
It's going well, thank you. This is a request for council approval of an award letter that the city would be providing to Northwest Housing Alternatives for their grant funding effort, or their funding efforts from the Oregon, I'm gonna get this right, the Oregon always get it wrong, Housing and Community Services. So, the grant that we would be providing them is of course just a small component of their overall funding needs. And previous to this, we've had approval of the $500,000 of ARPA funds to go towards this project. And we've since been negotiating with Northwest Housing Alternatives to come up with a grant agreement. And so one of the points of contention, or not contention, but concern was the timing of the disbursement. And the city wanting to make sure that the money was being used and would be used in the time frame that the ARPA funds require. A little tough because the applicant doesn't know when they're going to get their funding yet. But so we kind of shifted gears a little bit. And so we're going with an award letter that they can demonstrate that there is this conditional disbursement of the funds from the city to them, should they be successful with their funding efforts. That can demonstrate, that the city's got a commitment here. And they'll go through a couple cycles, potentially, hopefully just one, but potentially 2 cycles of funding applications to hopefully get their funding before the end of the year. So if they're fortunate to have that happen, then we will enter into grant negotiations again, and we'll know that if we give them the $500,000 this time, that they have their larger funding source in place. And if it's before the end of the year, they will know that the timing is such that they can get the project done before December 31st, 2026, which is the deadline. So we'll still need to put some quote unquote clawback provisions into that agreement, but we'll feel much better about it knowing that they have their funding source in place. So that award letter is in your packet and has kind of the conditions, the terms and the conditions. Much of it is things that you've heard before. In terms of securing their funding, must provide a minimum 40 unit income restricted rental housing project, that they obtain unappealable land use approval, that they meet all the income requirements, income limitations that we've set out, household income limitations that we've discussed previously. That it also has a provision that should they not be successful with their funding applications, that the city may revisit the terms and conditions set out this letter, potentially reissue the RFP or take any other action the city determines to be in the best interest of the public. We hope that it doesn't come to that. We're hopeful that they'll be successful. They think they'll be successful. It certainly raises their prospects a lot when a city has a commitment like we have put in place here. Again, with us tonight is Clayton Crowhurst. Crowhurst, he's the development manager for Northwest Housing Alternatives, and he's here to. You want to provide any comments on top of that? If you want to.
Yeah, open to questions that you might have. And yeah, Clayton Crowhurst, Northwest Housing Alternatives. So yeah, kind of open to any questions y'all may have in terms of process, timeline, whatever else.
I got one down here, so we'll start here.
Outside the box, but it sounds like there's all kinds of money out there available for low-income housing projects now. The difficulty is finding contractors and land on which to do it. Is that the case, or is that just the headlines?
It's somewhat the case and a lot the headlines at the moment. I think when we hear about, kind of the housing production goals that are being put out there statewide, some of the funding that's hoped to be coming down, that's, great for folks like us to hear. But that is, at this point, is mostly rhetoric and hasn't matriculated into a workable budget or funding sources. Obviously, the summer, what we're calling the small projects NOFA that we would be going after for this development is something that, as far as we know at this point from OHCS, already has funding allocated to it. And again, OHCS operates off of a biennium funding schedule, like the rest of the government. So hopefully, yes, in 6 to 8 more months, we'll have, a lot rosier outlook in terms of funding available. It still is very competitive and very difficult though. So.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Do you have an update on the negotiations with the parcel?
Yeah, I was actually just out there today speaking with the pastor. We are, I think, have 2 items in the option agreement to nail down. I think we've settled on a potential purchase price for the property, as well as, a lot of other conditions in terms of site access, layout of buildings on the site. So yeah, I think we're feeling really good about where things are at with negotiation in terms of the parcel ahead of that funding round.
Sounds good. So you're still pretty confident that we're moving down the right road?
I mean, I can tell you that I am working very hard to get the project to move in that direction. So, and that's, basically all the things that we have control over, we're pushing forward as hard as we can at the moment.
Okay.
I think the big unknown anytime that we're dealing with funding from OHCS is that is a competitive funding offering, and it is partially dependent on other projects that may come into that funding round in this area or in other parts of the state, as opposed, in terms of where those funds get allocated to. So we control what we can and then don't worry about what we can't.
But just to be clear, you've done this before and you guys have a history, and this is not.
We do have a very good batting average when it comes to funding applications.
This is not a new process.
No, it is not, yeah. Doesn't mean that it's any less difficult each time we do it, but yes, definitely not new to us.
Go ahead. I have a comment, but go ahead.
Go ahead.
Is there a plan B in case you don't get this funding that you're expecting from OHCS?
Yeah, we would look at other funding rounds that would be coming up in January. Obviously, that would require the terms of this award letter to be renegotiated at that time. We'd have to reevaluate timing of the ARPA funds, availability of other funding opportunities. But yeah, typically, and that's normally in January is the main funding round for several sources out there. The advantages for this funding round this summer is that it is conditioned and set up for a project of this size. And it also is more flexible in terms of allowing units up to that 80% of area median income, which I think all of us can agree is a big need as part of the overall project structure.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I felt from the beginning of this process that we have the right partner involved, you and your firm. If not, we only have 2 ways out of town and we know what they are. But I feel very comfortable in moving forward with this. I think we have the right players. And so I want to thank you for the work you put in for the benefit of the citizens of this community, and let's all keep our fingers crossed for that funding round.
Yeah, and the feeling is mutual. I want to show a lot of appreciation to these 3 here in terms of negotiating the finer points of this award letter. And we also, in addition to the award letter that's in front of you all tonight, we also have a draft grant agreement that if we are successful in funding, I feel like is in a great place to kind of pick back up, brush off, adjust a few things, and then move forward with that. So I think there's been a lot of work going on behind the scenes from these 3 here to really move this process forward, and we really appreciate it.
It's because of them we punch above our weight.
Yeah, exactly.
When will you know about this grant opportunity?
So we're waiting on, typically these come out, the funding application comes out in June, due 60 to 90 days after. Between October and November is when we would typically expect to hear back. Obviously, in terms of overall review timeline, I feel like every year it changes. So take that with a big grain of salt. But before the end of the year is when we would expect, at the outside to hear from it. And yeah, I think that just gives you all a sense for, I wish we could move 3-4 times as fast, but it's a process.
And what percentage of the entire project cost would this grant possibly cover?
let's see if I can put this in a percentage on the fly. I'm going to say 5 to 7%. And again, that's total development costs, just raw number. I think, as Scott pointed out, it is super helpful to be able to show an award letter from a local jurisdiction that has committed funding into a project. So that's incredibly helpful in the success of an application.
Okay, any last thoughts? Thanks for your hard work.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Thanks for coming.
Looks like we can entertain a motion.
I move to approve an award letter to build an affordable housing development in the city of Sisters to Northwest Housing Alternatives and conditionally approve $500,000 of grant funds for the project.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
There you go.
All right.
Thanks, Clayton.
Biddy bob, biddy boom.
Scott?
Clayton, don't be a stranger. Come in, October's a long ways away, right? So every couple months. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Next up, ODOT IGA amendment. That is item B.
Good evening.
Paul.
So this is the IGA that ODOT, the staff that came a couple months ago, talked about for the Locust US 20 roundabout project. It's a amendment to an original 2019 IGA. It's the second amendment, and it goes into really detail out the funding package, who is going to be providing what dollars, where from, and when. So with this approval, it will commit the city to an additional expenditure for the project, and it will cap it at the $587 approximately $1,000 for our funding commitment. What it doesn't tie into as far as detail wise is the right-of-way acquisition that we did with the school district. That will come at on an additional amendment once the STIP funds become available for primarily construction. And it'll be recognized, the dollars that we spent for that right of way in that third amendment. So with this, again, it is defining that commitment for funding for the project, and staff is recommending approval.
Okay, so a lot of people get nervous when you start talking Second Amendment, so just be careful. No,
Amendment number 2.
yeah, amendment number 2, no, that's good. So that third amendment, just so we can kind of map it out, I think we all understand what this one is, but the next one, time-wise, Paul?
When the STIP funds become available to spend, so
Okay,
more than likely right after the first of the year,
okay,
because they're 2024 dollars.
okay.
Yep.
And they're not gonna do anything until we do all that, right? As
Well,
far as moving dirt, or are they gonna be able to move dirt before then?
no. We're gonna plan on going to construction February-ish next spring. So we
Okay.
gotta have those funds available.
Yeah.
The funds that you're committing to, along with county funds, are to really finish up the design, and there'll be some initial construction funding as well.
Okay, can't you just mow some dirt, move some stuff around so it looks like we're
Wish we
starting in
could.
the fall?
Yeah.
Anything, right?
Yep.
Does anybody have any questions about this amendment?
I just had a clarification about the financial impact here. It's going to come out of the URA budget, 23, 24. So is that, just out of curiosity, is that stuff that we already have in that fund? Or is that what those
That'll be that,
accrued funds will?
yeah, that'll be that
towards?
re-roll of kind of that dance of the URA, the debt service fund getting the tax and then transferring it to the project fund where that will be expended from, and then you'll have $450,000 of URA taxes annually. So that's plenty to cover that amount.
Okay.
Is there a future URA meeting coming to take care of that end of it? Or does that happen already, has that already happened because it's in the project list?
Well, it'll be, yeah, good question. So yes, it's been adopted in the project list, but it'll be 23, 24. So it will be in the budget. We'll have that dance again, probably in the budget, and we'll kind of go through how that works and to get that to the project fund.
Okay,
So
one
you'll
more
get-
time, we'll do that.
Yeah, you guys will be experts. at
What's the
this.
time frame on that? For that meeting? Not till next year, is that what you said?
Yeah, so it'll be it'll be in the 23-24 adopted budget, or
Okay.
proposed budget.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And that's why we had actually in the agreement a due date for the contribution of end of August.
Yeah.
We get the budget wrapped up.
Gotcha, thank you.
Just
Like
for
it.
a perspective look, the roundabout that's going on Cooley and whatever, is this one gonna be that big or bigger?
No, that's a multi-lane roundabout,
Okay, this
so ours
a
is gonna be
single lane.
smaller.
So it'll
Yeah.
be smaller.
Yeah.
It'll be more like the other end of town.
It'll be exactly the same size as
Okay.
Barclay.
No, the bookends are gonna look very similar.
Yep.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you, Paul. We can probably have a final discussion or a motion.
I don't have any discussion.
I move. Yes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I move to approve amendment number 2 of intergovernmental agreement number 73000-001295A with the Oregon Department of Transportation for improvements on US 20 at Locust Street.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great, so moved.
Thank you.
Item C, East Portal Transportation Hub.
All right, so this is a follow-up to your April 12th workshop where we looked at and presented the new master plan for the East Portal site. And it's really, Kittleson did a great job in their cover memo of detailing out kind of how the process went, any changes that were made. They basically cleaned up the final concept, made it actually look really good without the phasing lines on it, the colors. And with that, we're here to finalize the master plan. Once this happens, our next steps will be to apply for funding. Got to try to get some funding for not only design, but, phase 1 construction. What that looks like will come out of the refined design project that we'll have. We'll need to finalize the STIF funding that we applied for, and we made the list. But the state still has to finalize that funding, and then we'll have to work with CET on an agreement that we'll bring back to you all for the expenditures of those dollars. And then lastly, we're hoping to start design late 2023, early 2024. Try to get this project off the ground. So, and I did miss, the biggest step, and the first one we'll do is we've already worked on scheduling a meeting with ODOT, show them the master plan, get the grant finalized, and then apply for our grant reimbursement dollars for the master plan project.
Cool. All right, does anybody have any questions for Paul on this one?
Is there any use of that property before we start moving things around? I mean, is that something like CET can currently use if they wanted to use it for a bus stop or any other transportation provider? Or we're not flying that flag yet?
We can work with them on that. The smaller buses potentially, there is a restroom there, so that helps. Lighting could be an issue for them, especially in the winter months. But we can definitely throw that out. They're pretty regimented with their routes and their pickup points and drop-off points. So I'm sure, a little bit of a process to work through that with them. But, there is some parking there, but we kind of foresee that it continue to act and work as it has been as, basically a rest stop for the highway traffic. And it'll be open as soon as the Highway 242 Scenic Drive is open.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's kind of no way to avoid having it remain underutilized because it's just not set up for a lot of stuff right now, other than cars and very small.
Pretty minimal, yeah, yep.
And that's one of the reasons we're improving it as grand as we are. We want to be able to do more with it, so.
And we'll continue to go in and do, you know, fuel reduction work. We did a bunch last fall with some inmate crews just to do some ladder fuel treatments. Generally just clean up the place, make it look better. It's hasn't had a lot of maintenance and upkeep and love for a long time. So we had to remove some dead trees, diseased trees. We got that done. So you'll see that there'll be some activity out there over the next
Well,
6 to 12 months. Yeah,
remain being stewards of our property, right? So,
absolutely.
And I know that you addressed the, making sure that we've got enough conduit and power to that location, but I was just watching something the other day about people developing, in-ground, chargers, similar to the, cell phone ones, but, for cars and then larger vehicles. So that technology is evolving rapidly. And so I know that we don't need to have those kind of details right now, but as long as we got enough amps piped into that site, I think we'll be good.
Yeah, I would hope by the time we get to final design that we're starting to land on a little bit better understanding of where the technology is going, or where we're going to plan for. Because, gosh, trying to construct and guess right now would be very difficult, especially when you're talking the superchargers, the Type 3s.
or whatever waste management vehicles electric trucks might need. Who knows? I mean,
Or our transit fleet.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's just one of those things that we're always going to have to be checking in on as a council in the city. So, Gary, got anything? Susan? No? Thank you.
Great.
Could use a motion.
I would move approval of the East Portal Transportation Hub Master Plan.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any final comments? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Well, that's a good one.
Thank you.
What a good meeting.
Yeah.
Can you come up again and let's do Barclay Drive improvements project?
More than happy to.
Okay.
All right.
Come on up.
Going to be efficient with this. So again, this is circling back after your April 12th workshop, where the concept design for Barclay Drive, essentially the alternate route, was presented to you. We got feedback, made some small changes to the conceptual design, and just wanted to bring it back to you all and get a thumbs up with a motion to proceed with that concept design. And we will then work with Kittleson to take it to 60%, which is basically designing the preliminary storm drain system and any other utility things that we need to do. That way we can get a profile look at what's going on underneath the roadway to see what kind of conflicts we'll have with the other utilities. And we'll send those plans to the other utilities to be able to, they can start looking at them and we can work together to address some of our schedule. They have to budget, obviously, if we have to move stuff. So we got to give them as much heads up as we can. And then we'll take that input and go to final design.
Awesome. Anybody have any questions about this one?
Just a comment, not having been here for the workshop, I was real pleased at looking at the conceptual design to see that I think it's going to do a wonderful job of integrating this corner here on South Locust, Barclay, and the wider way. It looks good. It looks clean.
Great.
And I want to congratulate those of you that have worked on this, because I know it was probably not an easy process.
Yeah, that's going to be basically the biggest change for the community, is that stop and stop. There are additional benefits that we will likely recognize out of that change, mostly around slowing traffic down coming into town. Yep.
Yeah, I like in the design how it bends a little bit, because that'll prevent inattentive people from blowing through.
Right.
That's what I vision too, especially when we make that change. There's going to be an awful lot of eye muscle, foot memory coming into play if we leave it the way it is.
Right.
We'll look at different, obviously, some intelligent traffic control devices.
Yeah.
Maybe look at rumble strips. I know those things are tough to live by out there, but we don't have a lot of residents that are close to them, but different type of, advanced warning that we can give people
Yeah.
until they get used to it.
Might be a little extra pain out there for a while.
Some help from our law enforcement there to,
wouldn't hurt.
let people pay attention, make sure they're paying attention will help as well.
Yeah, I have a question. Just checking in with, our business owners out there, they know this is coming. I know you've been having some conversations with them about it. How's the reception and of the improvements in general?
Good. I think the overall plan, I haven't heard any people that are not in support of.
Great.
It's, obvious private property access concerns. And we're just getting that feedback now so we can go through and work the design with those property owners as much as we can to accommodate their needs, accommodate the corridor's needs, and deal with the right-of-way needs as well. So,
Mayor, I do have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
The mayor reminded me when he mentioned it, and you mentioned that you haven't heard from anyone locally. A friend of mine asked the other day, who lives over in that community just north of Barclay Lane. And when you come out of Pine and you want to turn left, the way the road is now, you can't see if a car is coming. Is that something that's going to be addressed during this process?
during the actual construction of the project, for sure, we're going to work with that property owner. That fence actually is on private property.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just going to have to work with them to try to come up with a better solution there. The intersection will get reworked a little bit to help provide better sight distance, increase radiuses around the corners, which will help as well. So yeah, we'll be looking at that.
And there's no plan to put a stoplight there, right?
What?
No.
Stoplight?
Did you lose
We
the
don't-
L word?
Yeah, we don't use that word here. No, I'm just kidding.
No, there isn't.
Okay.
One thing I have learned, being on council for a while, being on council for a while is, we'll do our best when we're building it, but then we have traffic studies right after that and make sure that it's as safe as we think it is. And if it's not, we make adjustments, right? I mean, that's what we do.
Yep.
And it's
absolutely.
always, it's constant. It's like, it's not anything we do just for everything. We test everything all the time. And so that's why we have those kinds of contracts with traffic engineers.
Yep.
And what part of this whole process is that route deemed a bypass, a
Freight route.
parkway, a freight
One-
route, a truck route? I know
Alternate,
there's
yeah.
still, there's still, that hasn't been nailed down correctly, because those all have different implications, right?
They do. So right now, ODOT and the city has landed on an alternate route to US 20 and 126. As we work with the freight community, for instance, and we're able to negotiate a deal with them to have that be their freight route, then it changes from an alternate route to an alternate route and freight route and continues on to, it's not set up to be a bypass.
Yeah.
It just isn't. So it's really alternate route, and can we direct the freight to essentially have to use it for their through route? So, which that's going to be a process that we're going to jump into as soon as we have the improvements done.
Right, so that phrasing is somewhat important because they're different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, anything else? Good job.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I move to approve the Barclay Drive Improvements Project Concept Design.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? Other than it's exciting? All right, well, we'll just get into the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Oh, you got one more, I forgot. It was on the back of my sheet, the two-sided sheet, so. Last one for you though, right now, slurry seal project contract, Paul.
So we want to bring this to you guys for approval. This is for our slurry seal project for 2023 that we'd like to get done this spring, but it's going to be completely weather dependent, pavement temperature dependent. You got to have pretty warm pavement temps to be able to do it. So we're going to extend that contract out to August 31st, and you'll see it in the budget whether we got it done or planning, have heard from the contractor that they're confident they can get it done in this fiscal year, or if we're going to push to in the summer. So still to be determined on that. The treatment is a type 3 slurry. We chose to do that after we experienced a type 2 slurry project and the results of that, as well as there's been some type 3 slurries going on in Central Oregon that we've been able to look at, observe over multiple winters, and getting feedback from our neighbors on how they're performing. And everybody's starting to really land on this type 3 just because the studded tire traffic just tears up the type 2. So still a very low impact road surface. It's 1/4 inch minus aggregate. So very fine, will still be conducive to the cycling community, pedestrian community, but will provide a much better product, much better wear than a typical seal coat that you would see. So roads that we're looking at treating with this are Tyee Drive from Locust to Elm Street, Wapato Loop, which is off of Tyee Drive, and then Timber Creek Drive from East Cascade to the Hammerhead at the dead end, and then Creekside Drive from our pavement rehab project up at 126 to where the overlay project ended just north of the bridge. So those are the 4 streets we want to treat with it. And
I've been here too long because I can see every street when you're saying it now. I gotta get out of here.
Got the map memorized, yeah.
Yeah, and we have a pavement maintenance plan. We're going out and evaluating our streets every year. Tyee and Wapato were last treated in 2012, so they're definitely due. We got good longevity out of those treatments. That's 11 years. We typically shoot for a 5 to 7, so we're pretty happy about that. We didn't get as much or as long of a product out of or a result out of the Timber Creek Drive and the Creekside, which were done in 2016, but they're still at that 7-year mark, so they're due.
Right.
Get the treatment.
Are those type 2s or were those?
They were all seal coats.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, different process, no aggregate, just essentially an emulsion product put on them.
Slop.
Heavy duty paint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
Okay.
And how much of an inconvenience is it to the people living on these streets, out of curiosity?
In good weather, 4 to 6 hours. They will do likely half of a street at a time so they can still get people in and out, but there will be plenty of advance warning. It was in their bid schedule to provide a traffic control and notification price with their project bid to work with the property owners, getting them in and out, but yeah.
They're gonna park the slurry truck in your driveway.
Yeah, it's a very big driveway. I'm happy to rent it to them.
Yep.
I'm gonna make a comment. Our streets rock compared to Bend.
Oh.
And Redmond's not too bad, but I think we're still ahead of them too. So
I think as a region, we're working hard to deal with our climate, which is just brutal on asphalt.
there's no doubt.
Yep.
Need to come up with something besides studded tires that people feel confident with.
Snowmobiles.
Yeah, zoom, zoom.
Or a way to put concrete down much cheaper than it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe someday.
Yep.
Yeah, people
right,
have
any-
no concept of what it costs to build a mile of road.
Right.
Any more questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Paul. We could probably entertain some kind of motion.
I would move to award a slurry seal project contract to pave, is it pave or pave?
Pave Northwest.
Pave, I thought maybe we were going like diamonds. Pave Northwest Incorporated in the amount of $78,268.70 and authorize the interim city manager, ta-da, to execute the contract and any necessary change orders and amendments within a contract contingency amount of 5%.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any last words? I'm going to just say, good job, Paul. I mean, that's
Yes.
4 huge things right there.
Yeah, thank you.
Plus the consent agenda.
Yeah.
Plus,
You've been a busy boy.
yeah. All right, so here comes a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All 5, there you go.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Did Eric want to get in on that action?
That wasn't him.
We were just
Okay.
flashing his name up.
All right, the last thing is the city manager employment agreement. I assume everybody got one.
No one employed me. I didn't get an employment agreement.
Sounds like a pretty good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, without getting deep into it, can I ask, and I'll write them down, is there anything in particular of concern? Like, without getting deep into it, just name the concerns or the areas that you might want to talk about?
A starting date.
Start date? Okay.
I was hoping that we'd make it a little more emphatic that we would like the new CM to communicate regularly with the community, reporting on what we do here and, kind of patting our backs kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know if that's a thing you want in a contract, but I think that, or an agreement, I think that we can definitely, when he's on board, get to that point. So I don't think that's something you normally, hey, Jordan, we see you up there.
Who is that masked man?
About the start date, I just want everybody to know, I did talk to Jordan this afternoon, and I think I can provide an update on that. Is there any other issues within the contract that are important points?
There was the typo that I had.
We have a typo, which is a Scribner's error.
The attorneys caught that right after you did.
Okay, great.
That was an Easter egg they put in
And I
there.
got it right
As
after the
always,
attorneys.
it's a test, so well done.
It was in the severance area, it said 2036, and yeah, that was just a 10-year error, not a big deal. Is there anything else that was a point that anybody wanted to discuss? Okay.
Yep, I think she mentioned it in my discussions. Would like to hear what Jordan has to say, but I'm far more comfortable.
About the start date, right. Well, Jordan and I had, is it okay for Jordan to?
Yeah, you might want to just go through what we talked
Yeah, so I had the same thought, and I was a little bit surprised at myself, not really catching it at the time, which is just kind of that 30-day floating period where we didn't know what was going on. So I had a conversation with Jordan, and he's intent on coming here, obviously. He's here on the phone call, so there he is. But more than that, he felt comfortable if we wanted to slightly modify that in some manner. And can I be perfectly clear on it, Jordan, what we talked about?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally understand the question. I told the mayor that the July 1st date was definitely reasonable. That's our target, that's our goal, and I think that's what I think hopefully I had communicated to the council, that our goal is to relocate this summer. And then I think I texted the mayor later after our conversation that July 1st is on a Saturday, so I think July 5th is a great start date. Gives us one more weekend to move. But yeah, we're excited. I wish we can get down there sooner, but we're actively working on it. And the 30-day thing is definitely something that was a little new to me too, but I appreciated the attorney's offer to make something flexible. But I definitely understand that for clarity and expectations, a clear start date is reasonable.
Yeah, it was, it stood out to me partially because we'd like you here yesterday.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. But partially, I think, as representatives, elected representatives of the community, I think the community feels the same way as well. I think everybody's excited about your arrival. So, and I get that question a lot of, what's his start date? And so I will be excited to have a date to tell people. And yeah, like I would prefer it was something sooner, but such as it is, I think this is a good compromise. And yeah, I can live with that.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, and council, I am more than happy to, as time permits and schedules, if there's certain things that would be important for me to attend, or even virtual meetings like tonight. I mean, this has been informative for me and educational. We'll be probably scrambling in June to move, but I'm sure I can make time, for anything that you think would be helpful, just to give me a better running start.
We'll keep that in mind. Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank you.
Jordan.
And I would just add to encourage that if we get close to that date and there's some kind of a conflict related to childcare, the issues of moving with 2 young children, a working spouse, please be clear and communicate that to us and everyone else so that we can be sure that we're being attentive to your needs as well. But I like the concept of the 5th of July. I was hoping you'd work on the 3rd, which is my birthday, so you could give me a gift. No. But it's a great weekend, so it'd be nice to cap off my great weekend with a new face in the city manager's office.
Is it cleaner to have July 1st as the start date on your end of things?
No, not really.
Okay.
Our pay period ends on the 10th, and the 25th. So those are the days we like,
okay.
but it's fine. We'll have a good prorated pay all ready to go for him.
Yeah. So if he starts the 5th and he comes in the 5th and hit the ground running. Yeah. I think thank you, Jordan. I really appreciate the conversations that we had talking about that. So a Scribner's error and a hard start date of July 5th. Is there anything else? I mean, I think that this
Well done.
agreement was fairly negotiated between both parties. I appreciate our legal counsel for actually writing it. But it's been a pleasure talking to you about it, and I thank you. If there's nothing else, then other than adding the Scribner's error and the July 5th start, if a motion is made, please include those.
I move to approve the city manager employment agreement with a start date of July 5th and a correction of the Scribner's error of 2036. Yeah.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any last discussions? Okay.
He's also welcome to start work earlier.
Yeah, well, he offered it. He does no idea what he just put himself into, but.
Just leaving that on the table.
All right. Just a regular vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any dissension?
I'm just going to miss our acting CM. I just want to say.
He's still going
I'll
to be
still
here.
be back there. I'll be in the peanut gallery.
All right.
And you will have to have your children draw pictures every day to put in front of your name. We have a.
Oh, yeah.
The banner has been raised and the standard has been set.
All right. So thank you, Jordan.
Thank you, council. Very much looking forward to it. We're excited. I too wish it was sooner, but this will be a quick 2 months for us, and really looking forward to it. Thank you.
See you soon.
Thank you. Good to see you here tonight. Thank you.
Good to see you too.
All right. Wow. Okay. I think that's cool.
Yay! Did we get some good business done today or what?
I might frame this one and then give you a copy of it for the record. Okay.
Well, and I like a lot of the things that we talked about and worked on and approved tonight were dovetailed really well into, the one comment we had from the woman, talking about the livability and maintaining all that stuff.
Nadine Sims.
Yes, a lot of these things are geared towards keeping it walkable, bikeable.
And very much underappreciated.
Yeah.
In overall scheme of things, it's,
Okay. On to other business staff comments. Carrie wins.
Absolutely. Not much going on here at City Hall.
No.
Nothing's happening.
I just have a bunch of things you guys can go to if you would like to fill up all your spare time. Just as a heads up, Deschutes County will be here tomorrow. A plan for their future, their 2040 vision. They will be a Sisters Area Open House at the Fire Hall, starting from 4 to 6 p.m. And our own previous Nicole Mardell will be part of that team.
Oh, good.
There.
So we can heckle.
Absolutely going to heckle tomorrow. We have the Arbor Day celebration at Cliff Clemens Park on Friday, the 28th at 10:30 a.m., led by, I believe, the mayor.
I will be there.
Crew will be there. And then we are kicking off in May, kind of the, Scott, help me with this, wildfire prevention month. Awareness month. So one of the things that is happening for us, May 10th, our council workshop will be all about that and what's happening within the community. But on May 9th, there is a wildfire home protection strategies free half-day workshop at the fire station that you can sign up for. I have a flyer. It is posted on our Facebook page. It went out, or it will go out maybe Friday. I know it is going out. But if you want more information, let me know on that. Otherwise, there's all kinds of things going on in the background with budget and other projects, but that's all I have tonight.
You should give us all the details of all of that. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, Carrie. All right, Joe, go ahead.
Okay, I'll go next. So,
Your time is limited as interim.
that's right.
Now.
I better take advantage while I can. So just a couple things. A payroll audit was finished up. That was done by SAFE, who administers our workman's comp program. Went really well. Learned a lot of changes as to how it works with the SAFE versus city county insurance, which used to administer our plan. So that was good. That just takes a lot of time, but they've got actually some really good auditors. They're really reasonable people that were great to work with. So in another audit news, we have our financial statements all done. We got those yesterday, so I'll submit those to the state, to the Government Finance Officers Association for review, and also to our continuing disclosures website for our bonds. So anyone that has our bonds can look at our financial statements and things like that. To Carrie's point, been having our heads in budget pretty good. Paul and I spent a few hours together today combing over a lot of numbers, which is actually kind of a fun time. Probably, I wish we could do it more. Maybe we'll schedule some more time to do it in the future. But that was great. I mean, obviously Paul's a busy guy and Scott too. So this is a little bit out of their realm of job. So I really appreciate the time and effort and energy they put into that. And then lastly, I was able to represent you all and our citizens and staff at the City Club City Managers Forum last week. That was fun. I was a little bit outmatched for political sparring when you have like the likes of Steve Forrester, Eric King, Keith from Redmond, and then Lapine and Madras were also there. But I was able to talk briefly, and Councilor Letts was there as well. And I was able to talk briefly about a little bit about housing, a little bit about water conservation and what we've done and how our dynamic is a little unique to the rest of the region, and then a little bit about dark skies. Someone had something to say about that, and I think it was important for me to express the fact that our council is really aware of that and how it impacts the region, the town, and it's symbiotic in that respect. So it was a really good meeting. Again, I'm a little bit outmatched politically with some of those people that are up there, but I will say it's really neat to see how our region is represented just by the city managers. I mean, top down, Steve, Eric, all those folks do a really good job, and I think they represent our community as well. And there's so many different things going on, from airport expansion, to biomass biomass projects. It's really, really diverse. So it's actually kind of cool to learn about all that.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. That's all I have.
I was just gonna say that this region is, pretty special, that we work that hard together, and we just do. Not just through that organization, but other ones,
For sure, yeah.
Did he do okay?
Yeah, he did great. He was getting, he didn't get to have a lot of words in there, but after, I was getting frustrated, but then after a while I thought, no, it's okay. We're sisters. We're doing our own thing up here. We know what we're doing. And
Well, and they
We don't
want
need
to
to
talk,
make a lot of noise.
right, and when they talk about public safety, Bend, they were trying to tout their levy that they had, so, that was kind of, they were kind of taking over that conversation. Some of the good talking points I wanted to have were kind of overwhelmed by other people, and we only had so much time as well, so I tried.
Good.
It was a packed house, so
Yeah.
really well attended, so that was nice to see.
I work with that group too,
Oh.
so I get it. Okay, thanks. Anything else?
No, then our campground has been open. It's been doing really well. Our kiosk, as I mentioned in the last week meeting, is working really well. That remote kiosk that we have, so it's kind of all digital. Our camp hosts, one set's already there. The other set will be there on Saturday. So that's good. We had a chance to meet them because the ones that are there already, they're new. But I expect just with the weather, it's going to be a pretty busy campground this weekend.
So we have 2 hosts now?
So we have 2 sets like we usually do. Yep, and they'll trade on 7 days on, 7 days off as we've done in the past.
Do they both stay located in there?
They will.
They switch out?
They will. They both have their own spots.
Okay, that's what I'm
In the past, we've been kind of spoiled if some of them live close. Their home base is close, they'll go and hang out there. But these folks seem pretty active, so I could see them kind of wandering the region. They're from Georgia, so they might wander around on their days off and kind of explore.
Do they have the accents and everything?
Not as much as I thought. I was really expecting kind
They're
of.
big time travelers then,
Yeah.
Okay.
So I know.
That's okay.
Yep. Can't have it all.
I was out at the campground for the Easter hunt, and man, it was just looking good. I mean, it was.
Yeah. Public Works crew did an amazing job.
Oh, yeah.
On that.
And then the amount of eggs that disappear off the ground in 4 minutes is crazy.
Well, as opposed to out at the rodeo grounds where they drop them out of a helicopter
did.
in the hundreds.
Yeah.
I mean,
I heard there was 2,000 people out there.
no work involved at all
yeah.
in those egg
You
hunts.
just hold your basket
Yeah, you
open
just-
and. Okay. Scott, I'll leave Paul for last, sorry. You probably don't have a lot to talk about because we talked about everything. So,
So the planning commission, we held a retreat. We called it our retreat. We didn't really retreat to anywhere but down here. So that felt like it was a little farther away from their usual spot, but it was a good opportunity to get together and talk about things that, that they don't ordinarily get a chance to talk to. One of the things we heard from the one-on-ones was that they don't get enough unstructured time. You're always here, you're always in kind of a structured format. You don't get to know each other. So we spent the first half an hour as social time. So they got to kind of introduce each other. We've got a couple new commissioners. So it was very valuable from a bonding point of view for them to get together. The mayor showed up, gave some
it's not like I
pointers.
just showed up. You asked me to show up.
He just showed up out of the blue.
I'm stalking the planning commission. Hey, look, I can finally talk to him.
Yeah.
I just did a little intro.
Yeah,
That was helpful. You gave them your planning commissioner perspective, which I think is helpful, and how it can be a stepping stone to bigger things.
I told them, I said, their job is harder than ours, and it is. I fully believe that.
Yeah. So it was a good effort, good opportunity to kind of review their role. We had an opportunity to have Garrett give them a one-on-one on ethics again, as we've been challenged in a lot of those areas lately. So it's always good to talk about those things. It was a good opportunity for them to kind of talk about the comprehensive plan that was updated and how it integrates into what we do, and how, where it's directed by the development code and where it's not. How we implement those policies. Some folks want to see those, or think that those plans should be implemented instantaneously, but we got to remember that they're 20-year plans. So I think that was a good opportunity. I think they did mention that they'd love to have a joint meeting with you guys someday. So maybe we can work that in. In addition to Wildfire Awareness Month, May is also Preservation Month in terms of historic preservation. So there are a few activities going on around town. There's going to be some Downtown Sisters tours that are going to be going on during the month, led by some folks at the museum. And the Camp Polk Cemetery tours are going to be going on May 2nd, 7th, 12th, 16th, 21st, and 31st, which are, I think I've been on one before. They're pretty cool. So look I think you go onto their website if you're really interested in those times and dates. We talked about the Arbor Day event, the Sustainable Year Cities program is still ongoing. They're entering their spring semester, and will be, I think, the only class in this. Well, the only class in the spring is is your class still going on with the
There's still a piece going on with Explore Sisters.
Explore Sisters?
And,
Yeah, and so we're adding, in addition to that, a bicycle planning course that is going to come and take a look at our TSP and look at our existing infrastructure, where we will want to tie into trail connections on the periphery of our community. Take a look at maybe a fresh look at the multimodal center in terms of the infrastructure that we've kind of got in our master plan there. I've worked with this group in the past before. They're really good, and they'll be bringing out about 36 students next week here on Friday. So if you're around, you want to pop in and do your usual spiel. I think it starts around 10:30 on next Friday.
You have to
That'd be
bicycle
great.
in though. Friday?
Yeah.
Friday at what time?
I think it's 10:30 is when they get here.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want
Send me an email if you don't.
Yeah, I will. And then
I know what
to
I'm getting into.
Yeah.
cap the whole, we're coming up on the end of the year for that program already. So there is going to be an end of year celebration where the students are going to, a handful of students, I'm sure, I imagine not all of them, but we'll be making some presentations and have their posters of all the projects that they've done so far. Hopefully you guys could make that. I cannot make it because there's a planning commission meeting going on during that time.
What was the date on that again?
That wasn't good planning, I guess. I'm sorry. Say again.
What was the date?
The date is June 1st. It's 4 to 6 over at the elementary school. And I think I forwarded you guys an invite.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, you did. I saw.
that's going on. It'd be great if you guys could go out, come out and show your support for that.
Yeah, now that we know it's going to be a rec center over there.
Well, yeah.
So that's about it. Do you have any questions of me?
Any questions?
Our perpetual cleanup project across from the park, is it as good as it's going to get?
So we worked with, they went to the county judge, and he actually, made some site visits out here, and we kind of established we're pretty much going through, yes, that, no, that, that can stay, to that level of detail. And we've kind of established what is kind of a baseline now. And as long as they kind of keep that baseline and don't make it worse, they're technically in compliance.
So the baseline is what it is now?
Pretty much. I mean, I haven't been out there today, so I don't know. It changes.
Where are we talking about?
I don't want to be too specific about it, but just our code enforcement in general. So,
Okay.
yeah.
The fact is, there's some things that you're allowed to have in your yard. And if you're allowed to have some of those things in your yard, then you're allowed to have those things in your yard.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah. We don't legislate good taste. We just.
We're not looking for someone to have a completely bare yard. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
just trying to be fair. So, any other questions? Or you were done with that part?
I think so.
Okay.
If you have any, specific questions, just contact me directly.
I have one real quick question. Building permits, up, downs, flat?
From last year,
Just comparing, I guess.
we're still getting some, but you can look around town for some of these larger master plan projects that they're getting close to being built out. But we have Woodlands starting, so we have a batch of building permits there. We have the final phase of McKenzie Meadows that has generated some building permits. Hopefully some multifamily projects will come in and fill in some of that gap. But you can see as the buildable lots start to dwindle, that does have a direct connection to the number of building permits we see. So.
Do we have any start date on the plans across from the East Portal property?
The Sunset Meadows?
Sunset Meadows, yeah.
We've had some discussions with them. I think they submitted their construction plans. Is that correct, Paul, for the first phase, phase 1 and 2 for infrastructure to get that going? And we actually held a pre-application for the multifamily piece out there. So there's a possibility that may come forward sooner. The Planning Commission did add a condition of approval that the multifamily phase be moved up further into the project. Initially, they didn't want to do that, but they kind of took a look at it and started talking about it, and they thought they're really actually pretty bullish on the multifamily market right now. So that may be one of the first things that goes to construction out there.
So we might see something this year?
Well, infrastructure work, things in the ground, you might see that, you could very well see that maybe this summer. I don't know if they've indicated a start time, Paul, to you, but that could very easily start this summer. And then anything vertical would probably, I don't know, probably would not be this year, well, most likely.
Or late.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Paul.
Because he had so many items that we were gonna kind of let him free for
Oh, I
staff
thought
comments.
this guy was higher. I've never seen him before.
So we need to put that maybe as a
Just
council
today,
policy.
he's the headliner.
Yeah.
Just today.
We all take our turns.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's how we do it around here.
No, want to give you guys a couple updates, a grant update from Public Works. We're still waiting to hear back from the State Fire Marshal grant for our fuel reduction project. Anxiously awaiting, but it should be any day, we're hoping. We are working on 2 different climate action grants. One's through ODOT, and it would help shore up the funding. Both would help shore up the funding for East Portal. They'd be part of the funding package. The ODOT grant, we're looking to apply for the EV chargers in phase 1. Yep, including the underground infrastructure, the additional power supply to the sites, and conduit runs for future pedestals.
Any chance of getting some of those level 3 as opposed to 2?
So the second grant we're looking at is a federal grant.
Yes.
And it's exactly that, centered around the EV infrastructure. And we would be applying for type 3s that would be located in phase 4 of the East Portal. So much higher costs, much higher grant ask, but just attending webinars, they want to get substantial projects funded that are really making a difference.
I was aware that's why I asked.
And we will compete very well, we think, just because of the US 20 corridor.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're in the sweet spot.
Yeah, yep.
We always have.
So May might be Wildfire Awareness Month, but I think April was Wildfire Prevention Month. So an update on our fuel reduction project up at the wastewater treatment plant. All of the thinning and the ladder fuel removals have been completed. The chipping of the slash and the brush, they're a little over halfway done with that. Once they have that out of the way, then they'll start hauling off the actual logs from the thinning operation. It's gone very well. Had to work pretty closely with Five Pine just on start hours and time of the week to be in their backyard, but they were appreciative of working around their schedule. So, and then our contractor will then move up to the Edgerton Road parcel to start the thinning and fuel reduction work up there. So I think we're going to get it in before fire season.
Awesome.
We're hoping for.
Which,
That's all I had.
which could be sooner because it's super crunchy out there.
Very crunchy out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of a mind game because I think we all think, oh, we got a lot of snow, but it's up there.
Yeah.
Down here, it's really dry.
And it's all going to the west, having driven up the Santiam River today. It's flowing.
Yep.
All right, any questions, concerns, comments?
Did you happen to listen to the last COAC meeting?
I did not.
We had a representative from Freightliner and Daimler there on Zoom, talking about the changes in what they are going to be able to produce in the near future, and how the communities need to get together and recognize what is going to be available and what it's going to cost. And I kind of force, as far as the big trucks, the big engines, the big, and Chris Doty seemed to be pretty much aware of that it was coming and had lots of good questions. So you might want to talk to him about it. I don't know that it pertains to how much of that big kind of equipment we ever purchase, but it's coming hard and it's coming fast.
It's good to know. We're meeting with Chris next week, so
yeah.
we'll get a debrief for sure. And another thing I didn't mention, we have our own EV fleet study going on right now. That should be wrapped up here in about a month, and they're really pushing the envelope on trying to find us legitimate utility rigs that would work, that would be able to tow 12,000 pounds up to 16,000 pounds. And so they're going farther than Ford, Chevy, Dodge. So I'm excited to see what they come back with that. But again, just like the charging infrastructure and technology, that technology is changing daily too.
Yeah.
And that was one of their major concerns, is they have to go a certain direction and they have no confidence that the infrastructure is going to be there by the time they're required to be doing this. And so, it's kind of like, yeah, everybody's hoping for the best.
I'm sure Pilot and Flying J has perked up their ears. There's all kinds of opportunities for those guys.
Yeah.
Let's see.
All right, thank you.
And I think, and thanks for all your work towards sustainability and the climate projects that you've been slowly but gaining momentum.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that. I mean, I can definitely say that, soon, I think we keep on this trajectory, we will bypass the achievements of most, if not all of the other communities in Central Oregon.
I mean, we now understand what our footprint is and what it's going to take to get, back to neutral. So
Yeah.
just good stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
Cleaning up our own house first, That's what it took. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you to staff. It wouldn't be a city of sisters without you guys. On to mayor and councilor business. The first thing we're gonna do is talk about our visitor communication from ASA about the local option.
Then go get his kids to bed.
Yeah.
I was just thinking the same.
We've been drawing out the meeting just to torture you.
Does anybody want to talk about any particular details about it, or just flat out show your support of it?
I've been involved a few steps back because I attend the superintendent coffees of a kid in the school district, and been kind of watching the work that they've been doing with the PAC and reading through the materials and yeah, I mean, I think the best graphic that they've been sharing with the public is comparing our school district's budget to that of like Redmond and Bend. And even when you add in this important levy, that our school district budget is still smaller per child than those bigger districts. And yet we're able to do a lot of amazing things. And then the superintendent also had said at one point, but when he was still allowed to talk about it, because he cannot campaign for it, he did point out that ASA pointed out like this 10% it could be equivalent to 16 teachers, for instance, and the superintendent was quick to point out that so many of our great programs like aviation and Luthier and the environmental ed program and woodworking and sports and all that is all run by one teacher, each one of those programs. So if they had to start pulling teachers out of the mix, like whole entire programs would go with a teacher, because that's kind of how thin the operations are. So that really stuck out to me as well, how important this money is, to our school district and our community. So.
She's running for school board, I can tell you.
Yeah.
I can hear it.
I can too.
Yeah.
As a
I tease.
educator in the state of Oregon since 1971, I've had an opportunity to go through all the machinations of Oregon school funding. It would be a great horror film. From the AB ballots, which some of you probably don't know what that is, to removing from school districts the opportunity to have higher levels of funding because the community would support that, and the equalization of all dollars going into the state and then coming back to you at a flat rate. With the concept of leveling the playing field for everyone. And what it really did was it took innovative districts and it made them uninnovative. And it took communities that weren't willing to support their schools and gave them enough money to do it. And so we've been operating under that model for 20 years, I think, or more. And the only option, no pun intended, the school districts have to try to keep some of these ancillary high-value programs going is the local option levy. And it's a little quirk in the law that still allows some level of local control over what is taught in their schools. And I shudder to think what any of our schools in the state of Oregon would look like, let alone innovative districts like Sisters, if the local option levy was not available to school districts. So I'm 100% behind this.
I'm going to speak next. It's a slam dunk. All right? You want to?
Yeah, I totally agree. I know that this levy is the same amount for, property taxes as has been in the past. So it's not going to impact, the public at all. But I kind of regret that it's not more money because, I still would have gone for it.
Now, how many years is it again?
Yeah.
5, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So is everybody head nod okay with a letter of support?
Way up.
So my question was, you had asked for a logo, use of logo. Were you also asking for a letter of support? Yes. Both?
Yes, a letter of endorsement and the use of the logo so we could advertise it as on our ads that will be available very soon.
Is that something I need to take care of? Yeah.
I can send the logo. You will need to take care of the letter. I can format for you.
Okay, thank you.
Like we did last time.
We'll be talking.
City logo.
Ours.
Oh, I see. Oh, I thought we were approving a logo. And I was going, what?
I thought it was
Local option has its own
Legos.
logo? Oh.
They had a new Lego program in school.
I was missing.
Being that we're public officials, I'll spearhead the letter thing with you.
No
with
staff.
with a little bit of help.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carrie. All right, you're good. You got the support. So, okay. Next up is just councilor comments. Who wants to go first? Anybody want to go first?
I'm short.
Okay.
I am. I'm only 5'4". I will not be bringing news about the houseless situation until I have good news. It is still so much involved in, you have to apply for the money and then you get the money and it has to be spent by a certain time, that there is no progress other than the preparation and the strategy and the development and all that kind of stuff that has to be done in order to make any of this work. And so it's not that stuff isn't being done, it is that it is not the kind of thing that is worth really discussing. However, the May City Club meeting is on this very topic. And so if you want to hear what's the big picture, once again, it will be very much big picture stuff. That will be on the 3rd Thursday in May. Carrie and I are going to go, if anybody else is interested to go as well. I did have a COAC meeting, and it was interesting maybe to those who work in public works, but there wasn't anything other than ODOT talking about how, yeah, they're right on time for all the roundabouts. So, they said they'd be done by the end of this year, all the ones that are going on. So it's amazing to see how much they've done already. I went through them today, and it's amazing.
Our taxes at work.
Oh, yeah. Round and round the roundabouts. That's all I had.
I have a question, I guess, or a proposition. So I stumbled on, again, money flying around right now. ODOT has a new short-term program called Community Charging Rebate Program. This is dollars earmarked specifically for multifamily housing. As a rebate to install level 2 chargers at multifamily housing across the state. It's kind of a short-term, I forwarded it to the dream team over there last week. It's kind of a short-term program, but they also are emphasizing rural communities in the application process as well. So, you know, that perked up my interest in it. And so I was trying to think of how we can help out. And I mean, at the minimum, I was wondering, you know, if the city could just contact, this is spitballing here, contact each one of the multifamily housing buildings that we have in the town, either the property managers or the owners, or probably both, and just, you know, forward this information and say this is available, so that they at least know about it.
It's not just for new housing, it's for
No.
retrofitting existing.
Existing, yeah, and it's kind of has a short, you know, it has to be, I'm not gonna go through all the details, but, you know, it's again, one of those things where they kind of want the money spent relatively quickly, and then the sunsets, I think, in August, so, you know, it's kind of an accelerated program. But again, you know, they're kind of gonna emphasize rural communities, which we are, and, you know, just this opportunity to help people in current multifamily housing have access to EV charging. I know that's an issue. I know there have been people who've, you know, reached out to us and, you know, were very excited about the library charging because they lived in multifamily housing and had no way to charge their vehicles, and they're getting more, way more affordable, and definitely a vehicle that can be good to have, you know, especially if you're on a fixed income and you're living in multifamily, or you're just a small household. So yes, I mean, we could talk about options going beyond that of, you know, helping out maybe with the permitting process or something if people do take advantages. I don't know how far we want to do that or not, but I think at least getting the word out on maybe city letterhead or something would at least catch the attention of maybe some property managers and stuff that aren't savvy to these things. You know, we've all experienced them, you know, they run the gamut of being very involved to, you know, give me your check and leave me alone. So, but I figured at least we got to try. So anything we can to get more charging stations for everybody in our community. So yeah, I don't know if you two have any thoughts on that, or what would be kind of the best tack for us on that, or.
Well, oh, go ahead.
I see.
Paul, did you see an email or anything? I mean, is that something that's been passed around yet?
I don't think I CC'd you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you come up to the mic, please? Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Sorry about that.
Name and address.
So when the email came to Joe, I believe, Joe forwarded it to me. And so I've had Carol get an updated list of all the property managers or owners of apartments. And I think she sent that out today, forwarded that out today.
Yeah, she'd forward that.
She copied it? Did she
Yeah.
copy you? Okay, I just want to make sure you knew that it was going out. So we'll see if any of them follow up, and if we can assist them in any way.
So it's kind of like poking the bush and see if who's.
Yeah, just making them
wants to
aware
come
of
out.
aware of these
So-
opportunities.
So she is contacting them, or is
did.
that?
Yeah, she either she already did, or she just put the list. She had to update our list of
Okay.
property owners. So we will
Okay.
forward that, and we could also forward it to any. I mean, I don't know if you were aware. Potentially, I don't know if the timing is right or not, but any prospective multifamily builders
Okay.
will share it with.
The email I got from her kind of just implied that she put the list together and that was it. So I'm not sure if anything beyond that was
Well,
done.
I'll make sure she sends
Okay.
it out too. We don't want just a list, it's just
Yeah, I know.
stay there, and we'll share that,
Yeah.
And-
nobody, but yeah, well, the intention is to get it out there.
And just to make sure everybody's okay with a little bit of time, you know, we're all in agreement that it's okay to use a little bit of time to do that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
If you
just
all are
making
okay
sure.
with that as
Yeah.
well. And
Cool, okay.
thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, that was a good thing, though. Cool. Right?
I
Go
have
ahead,
a
Gary.
kind of comment. I don't have any reports, obviously, but aside from having a great time and seeing lots of great sights, something that struck me that's pertinent to this discussion tonight. Everywhere I went in Iceland, I ran into a level 3, sometimes 2, sometimes 3 charger. Hotels, stores, gas stations. Hearst tried to rent me a Tesla. I thought about it, but no, they wanted too much money. But they said you could drive anywhere in Iceland with an electric car and never have to worry about charging. And I thought they were blowing smoke up my nose, and drove around that country 3,000 kilometers on the car that I had. So went everywhere. Little itty bitty fishing towns down dirt roads, electric charger. In the middle of the city, every parking lot, electric charger. Every hotel we're at, electric charger. And some were pretty dang small. And I know we can't do anything to affect what's happening in the entire country, but I think we really can, as the City of Sisters, do our part to ensure that when people come here with an alternatively powered vehicle, they have an opportunity
Get out of here.
yeah, to get out of here. Well, and you know, and not everybody was driving. I saw a number of battery-powered cars, but almost every single gasoline-powered automobile was a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid. And that's because electricity is almost free in Iceland because they generate it with all the big massive rivers they have, and gasoline is extremely expensive. And so there's a great incentive. But the point is it is possible to do it, and it just takes the willpower and, of course, some money. But I think that's why I asked the level 3 charger question, Paul. I think that it's important that the more we can do to encourage that kind of traffic in our community, people to stay here, people to eat here, people to come through town, the better off we're going to be. And there's no reason we can't be keep the Western theme. Maybe we can make all the chargers look like kitchen posts. But I think that we can do this without ruining the atmosphere of our community.
Kind of a good idea, actually.
It actually really is.
Every two, you could put a little log between them.
Well, maybe
We can make the
Western
charger
theme.
head look like a horse's head or something.
Yeah, there we go, Western theme,
Yeah.
cowboy.
We can
one.
figure out a way. Paul's smiling, so he doesn't hate the idea.
Little cowboy hats over each one as a
As long
shelter.
as he doesn't have to maintain them.
Right.
To the arts community.
So I shared this with Carrie, and she said it was not a program from Family Ford Foundation. That's what I read from you, right? Anyway.
Oh, the program that you're speaking to, it's not the program that I've spoken to.
Right, yeah. So I had asked, I'm sorry, that wasn't very clear. I had asked COIC Tammy Bainey as a board member, you know, what it is I should be bringing to them from our city, you know, what they're interested in, and what is it from them that I should be bringing to our city. So she sent me this little email, and part of it, she replied to me that they might impact Sisters and Sisters Country. Most impactful it is our budget, particularly funding available for supporting smaller rural communities with capacity building. Using this as an example, you might let your council know that there is a new partnership with Ford Family Foundation to fund rural capacity building. I'm sorry, I don't know what that means. And see if they are interested in having Scott and his team come and talk to us about it. So if you know what capacity building means, if you don't, I can find out. But we could have them maybe present to us because there's funding on this.
So to some degree, we've used the Ford Family Foundation and COIC for things like the 2019 vision.
Mhm.
I believe they were partial funders of that. Ford Family did things like sponsor half of our rare, which was Emmy Shoup, when we had her as a rare. So that's the rural capacity building. It brings the capacity of what we can do up. And that's normally, I'm sure Scott can, you know, outline quite a number of different projects, but that is the intent behind the Ford Family Foundation.
Okay. So do you think it would be worthwhile to have Scott talk about what they're offering, or you're saying you already understand it?
That's up to Scott, or excuse me, up to the council, what
council.
you guys would like.
Okay.
Well, okay, so how much time are we talking? Is it, I mean, from a staff perspective, are we adding a lot to your plate, or is it just kind of an outreach thing and setting something up?
It would just be, it would be a workshop item, is what it would be, that Scott would come to a workshop, which is partially what you've asked previously, is that we have a lot of our partners come
Yeah.
and speak to things. So it may not be a workshop that we can throw in prior to June.
I don't
I'd have
think
to
we'd
look
want
at
to
the
anyway.
scheduling, but if you are
We'd
in
probably
agreement,
want-
I can work with them to.
Jordan on board for that, so that way he can start diving in and seeing who our partners are and meeting them at the same time.
Yeah.
So-
I'll reach out to
Just-
Scott.
But
and
I don't think it's a bad idea.
Mhm.
I like it.
Okay.
Again, reaching out to people and asking questions, that's what we do. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just what we do. And so, good job.
Okay.
I'll reach out to Scott and clarify what exactly that program, and if it actually fits anything for us,
Okay.
and what if they need something prior to their budgeting, or
Right.
if
Yeah.
it can be later in the year.
You're speaking of Scott Acott, right?
Correct.
And then
Thank you, Carrie.
I just have a couple of other things which, I don't know if you are, but I was not aware that we in Sisters have our own radio station, KHIVE. It's located at the Belfry, and they're going to be seeking funding. There'll probably be an event because the current manager of it wants to own it, and then he wants to network with council, with our city and be able to report events or things like that. And so it's kind of exciting to have our own local radio station. So I wanted to share that. And then just to follow up on something I asked about a month ago, I think, was supporting Black Butte relative to some massive amount of fire fuel that was not cleaned up. And so I ended up contacting one of the owners that I know in Black Butte and made him aware of it. And he got back to me and thanked me and said that they are going to be looking into it and taking care of it.
Okay. Radio station, that's like,
Cincinnati?
yeah. The Nuggets can have a little news competition.
We had one through the high school for
Yeah.
a while or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, they're going to.
We've had an independent one back
Yeah.
as late as 09, 10 that I remember. I don't know how long it went after that.
He's going to work with the Nugget too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, they do have the news in their hands, so that's probably a good idea. I'm going to be brief. I got two items. They're both with COCO, Central Oregon Cities Organization. We had meetings last week. Paul was on board. A little bit of good news. Groundwater precipitation over the last year is up about 20% compared to last year. It's not going to get us out of a drought, but many of the reservoirs, Prineville, I think Wickiup even, are up higher than they've been in a while. And they're hoping for a pretty wet April. That was a March, I think, stat, or even a February stat. It just shows that we're not in a perpetual one dead drop, that things kind of go up and down. Even if they trend down, at least we have some good years, and we're hoping to still have a little more precipitation, although it's not happening the rest of this month. So I think it's gonna be pretty dry the next 5 days. It's just good to hear that. We're keeping track of it. The Deschutes County basin is well tended to. We're ahead of every other place in the state. We have our own state rep that works with us, that was funded by an initiative that was out of this area. Steve Forrester's part of it, obviously, because he's a water guy. But I talked, Eric King's in there, Keith's in there. We have a lot of smart people working on it, way smarter than me. I'm the co-chair only because they just like having an elected official in there. I'm not a water expert by any means. But Paul, thanks for being on that call. And we did discuss conservation from every community. Paul took the lead on that and gave him our business and how we do things. And it was just good to talk about that kind of stuff. The second thing about cocoa is we have a day at the Capitol where we're gonna, Doug Riggs, our lobbyist for cocoa. He's our full-time guy. He's been doing this a long time. He knows everybody. It was supposed to be tomorrow, but last week or the week before, there was just not enough open time for people to meet with us. So he moved it to May 1. So I'll be there on Monday. If there's anything, and it can be weird, I don't care, you want me to ask our local representatives in Salem, whether it's senators or legislators, either way, shoot me an email. I will print the email, highlight your question, and take it with me. I'm not scared of getting in front of people, you know what I mean? So I will be there all day on Monday. It starts at 7 a.m., so I'm actually driving down on Sunday, staying the night so I can get up nice and early, and I'll be on those steps out in front, 7 a.m., and meet with Doug Riggs, and hopefully there's a small contingent of Central Oregon people there, but I don't know who's going, to be honest with you. But he's setting up meetings for us, and even if it's 15 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 30 minutes there, that's good time.
The thing you'll discover is that you already know more about the issues than they do, and you're probably smarter than half of them. And having spent time lobbying in Washington, D.C., at least that's what I found.
Yeah.
Going into.
But anyway, that's what I'm doing next week. So again, open invitation. If there's a particular issue that you want me to ask about, I'll be meeting with the people who are supposedly representing us. So
thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Do you already have some issues that you're going to be asking that you'd like to share with us, or?
I'm going to be pounding all the stuff that we talk about all the time. I'm not a person that would normally talk about charters, but now I'm way interested in it because it's just the trend, you know what I mean? And now that things are getting cheaper and more available and stronger and better, and that includes charters, vehicles, everything, the whole gamut, I'm like, yeah, let's set the trend. Let's do it. I'm all for setting this community apart. So I'm going to probably do some talk about water. The cocoa bill, which is the water mitigation conservation bill, but it really is mostly about junipers and getting some money to test this and see if you take, a few acres of junipers out of a watershed, see how much water comes back. And that's what we're working on. Senator Owens and I forget who the rep is, but they're on from opposite sides of the aisle, and we're gonna get this bill through, I'm pretty sure. So that's kind of like a rah-rah highlight that I can do, but the rest of it's just gonna be whatever. I want to hear what people think about sisters. I want to say, hey, what do you think about sisters? What have you been hearing? And then I can kind of play off of that. I don't have a whole lot of particular. It's the same goes with you. If there's something you want me to ask somebody about, let me know. I mean, it's important, so. Yeah. I don't want to just go down there and just shake hands and not say anything. That's not going to happen ever, actually. But
I don't have a picture of that.
yeah, right. I don't think I really have anything other than that. I mean, we've been getting letters off and on about particular topics that supposedly we're ignoring, and I think today, I think this was a fantastic meeting today. We got a lot of different things going, and I think there are some people out there that are just wrong. So,
And they can't spell either.
Well, yeah.
Well, and I would like to actually recognize one of the first really positive, thoughtful comments that we've had related to some of these issues where, I thought our speaker spoke to the town, and the presentation was eloquent and clear and asked us to kind of keep all those things in consideration when we make decisions. I think that's a very appropriate way to approach us.
Yeah, that was nice.
I agree, and I wish they were all that way. But, the fact is, we're doing what we're doing, and I think we're doing a great job again. If anybody needs Nancy to come in and give us a rah-rah, we could probably have it done. But honestly, I think, again, we work hard looking at all these issues. We're very thoughtful.
I've done it in
And
the back.
anybody who thinks that they're not, I can't, I have a hard time with that.
All our email addresses are on the website, and they're,
Uh-oh.
well, but they're welcome to email, or welcome to ask questions, especially, that's what I would like to see, is if people have concerns, please ask questions, so.
Yeah.
Let's have a dialogue.
All right. Last word, anybody? Let's go home.
Do we have checks?
Yeah, not many. It's the end of the